Okay, so this is the last question I'll ask you. You mentioned something about citizen journalism just being a good thing or being maybe like a new...
Citizen journalism is taking over the journalism scheme of things. Citizen journalism is like when people are tweeting the news or people are writing blogs about the news or even independent local newspapers or online publications. And for a little while I was doing articles for an online paper, leftist.
Is there an advantage that this kind of like news pathway has?
There are advantages and disadvantages. Advantages because you're getting biased and unbiased information. You're getting information that's biased from a subjective person's point of view, but it's not being twisted and perverted by media sponsors and corporate influences. So there's those benefits, but the other side of it is that if someone's writing an article, they can be extremely subjective and just be like, I hate this group.
Right.
They can use adjectives that don't follow the Society of Professional Journalism,
right,
whatever,
unprofessional.
Code of ethics. There's a code of ethics, and it's not always followed by citizen journalists. But I tried my best to do that when I was doing that, and I read a couple articles about LGBT issues in South America, actually, in Chile, this was a couple of years ago, when they legalized an all-inclusive anti-discrimination policy that protected gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered people, because there had been so many deaths going on in Chile as a result of homophobia and transphobia and all of that kind of stuff. Like, there are people who were transgendered that were having their faces blowtorched off by a serial murderer, and there was a young man, I think this was also in Chile, I wrote an article about it, Zamudio, I think was his name, but anyways, he was murdered, and it was horrendous, by neo-Nazis in South America, and so I wrote an article about that. And then on the West Coast there is, in California, actually, there's a couple that they weren't legally married because of the time that the laws had changed and all that crap was going on. So what happened was that one of the women had to be deported, and they had a child together they had raised all these years. So they were common law partners, but they weren't legally married.
Right.
So one of them had to be sent back to the Philippines, etc., etc. But basically the point being is that those articles that I wrote circulated very well within like the Latino and Latina communities from the area I was at, and that was back in Ohio, because they were more willing to trust a news source that wasn't American necessarily, in those big five corporate media companies and all of that. So I guess that's my experience with citizen journalism. It's a good thing,
right?
But you have to be a little bit careful.
There's certain things that more traditional news media just won't really ever touch. Exactly. Maybe because it's too controversial, like for bad reasons. I don't know.
Yeah, think about this too. Like during the when I was doing a sociology course, I wrote a paper about the Occupy movement, and I actually watched someone doing videotaping. They were videotaping live feed of the riots. There was like riots going on during the police were coming in and taking away all the people from the Occupy movement, and they had a helicopter for every 3 people, and so a school bus. They had like 15 school buses that they were just zip-lining old people and throwing them into the school buses and taking them away. And none of the actual media sources, like none of the big ones, were showing any of that. But because that person was out there with the camera, I was able to see that. Hundreds of other people were able to see that, comment on it, experience, the kind of police brutality that still exists within the country. So I guess
another thing is you could never have like ABC or CBS come up to you in a coffee shop and be like, "Hey, you want to talk to people and be heard on the internet?" Like it's just almost impossible.
In the way that they edit things too, you don't get the real perspective.
Right.
So it's all perverted.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for that last answer for that last question. I think it's remarkable, like I said, that that this is something you were interested in. I didn't even know who you were. So
Yeah, no problem.
yeah,
No problem.
I feel very lucky. Thanks
Yeah.
for all of that.
Yeah, definitely. Take it easy.
Thanks, man.